feedback here on this Feedback Friday, Mackie and Judd, where we take all of your questions, concerns, curiosities, critiques, whatever it may be. And a lot of them are, as you can imagine, in the same bin here. People are just pissed off, just done with these short playoff runs.
Yeah.
So let's start with, maybe this is a new way to craft your outlook here. This is from Jamie K via the Score North app. Phil, Judd, and Declan, after yet another disappointing end to a sports season. First the Vikings, then the Wolves, now the Wild. I've decided after an epiphany I had that after that embarrassing Game 5 loss by the Wild, I am no longer, he's talking about Game 5. Okay. I am no longer going to let these teams steal my joy. Come to think of it, these teams have never given any of us fans any joy. And if you are a certain age, that is very much true. Now I get sports is only another form of entertainment. But as the late, great Owen Hart always said, enough is enough, and it's time for a change. So I propose financial boycotts of these teams until they can prove they are ready to go all in for their respective titles. I'm sick and tired of mediocrity. Win important games for once. Jamie K.
I've seen this before. I can't get on board with it. Because that would mean I'm not going to, or wouldn't, it would mean I'm condoning not going to games, and I can't do that. I can't condone that because I still love sports. I want to continue to ask for more, but I'm not on the boycott train, if that makes sense. So personally, I get it. I get your frustration, and you do you, Jamie. You do you. This is not a criticism. I've just seen this before, and I can't go as far as saying because I've seen stop watching stuff, and I get frustrated too. I guess that's just not in my DNA. I
actually think you're it's not really realistic too. People are going to go. There's going to be new generations of fans. People are going to spend money, so it's like you not going to games is not going to put a dent. But I will say, Twins fans collectively have kind of done this. I mean, Dex was at the games yesterday. They're like 23rd in attendance this season, even after signing Carlos Correa. There's just 2 decades of failure and apathy attached to that franchise because, in part because some of the core players haven't performed in the playoffs, but they've also been kind of afraid to make the big move, to spend on the big pitcher, to make the big trade deadline acquisition. They've wanted to sort of have their cake and eat it too, and it's blown up in their face. And now fans are responding by saying, I'm not going to pay $150 for, my family of 3 to go to a game and eat a couple hot dogs. Not until you prove that you are back on top in some way.
And that is a good way to like we talk about, trying to hold teams accountable. I mean, if you don't go, it hurts them. So despite the fact that that's not like my big thing, if you just have said, you know what, I'm done with this.
Yeah, your frustration's justified.
100%. Any frustration that we hear today, I am not going to laugh at and be like, oh yeah, but the team's try. No, you're right. I mean, I love the fact that we provide a platform, one of the few it feels like, for people to be passionate about their sports grief.
Yeah. You are not a crap fan if you are frustrated and want these teams to be better. You're an awesome fan. You're a great fan to us. And you're always welcome on Ventline, Mackie and Judd.
And you're right to be mad.
Yeah.
You're right. You should never be mocked for being pissed off about these things.
Exactly. And you know what? I'm not going to mock people that choose to view the sports world through a positive lens either. If that's how you, cool, that's awesome. This next one from Brian is not going to help this discussion. It's probably only going to fuel it. Okay. Brian via the Score North app says, I did some research. Since the year 2000, here are the playoff records for the 4 major men's teams in town.
This is good. This is good research, by the way.
So the Wild are, I'll give you the series records and then the game records here from Brian. So the Wild are 4-11 in playoff series, 32-48 in playoff games. The Twins since 2000 are 1-8 in playoff series, 6-27 in playoff games, and 0-18 in their last 18.
Yep.
The Wolves are 2-6 in playoff series, 17-29 in playoff games. The Vikings are 5-8 in the playoffs. So the summary is these teams are 7-25 in playoff series, 60-112 in playoff games since the year 2000.
Oh my God.
They're getting beat 2 out of every 3 playoff games.
That's you. That's Declan. Like it's incredible.
Amazing. It's so bad. It's so bad. And now there are some franchises. Cleveland just didn't go to the playoffs for like 20 years. The Buffalo Bills until they got Josh Allen.
Right.
So I guess would you rather the Lions? Would you rather be that and just never going? I mean, I'll take a team and collectively 4 teams that at least go to the playoffs and stuff. But my God, that's pathetic.
And playoffs have expanded too. So
yeah. Like imagine you've been a Royals fan, but you saw them go to the World Series a couple times. The Bengals for GD6 made the Super Bowl last year. I mean, we talk about the Chicago Black. A lot of hockey fans who are probably younger have seen, what are you talking about? Chicago Blackhawks. They won 3 cups. They were awful for years and years and years. The Panthers have been to a couple Super Bowls. Like, for God's sakes, how has a Minnesota men's professional team not just somehow by happenstance gotten there when all these other random fan bases have been there?
It's nuts, man.
Well, and Phil, to your Bills point, the Bills did have a huge run of being futile, but they've been to 4 Super Bowls, lost them all, since the Vikings have been to 1.
Yeah. They are basically the early 90s Bills are the 70s Vikings, right?
Exactly.
Really good.
Exactly. But my point is this: if I told you in the next 10 years that the Vikings were going to go to 4 Super Bowls, coin flip, you don't know that they could win 1 or 2, whatever, and then they were going to go on, let's say, a 15 to 20 year run of not being good, or they're going to just maintain being a good, solid team that occasionally suffers a devastating loss in the conference championship game. Which do you take?
Yeah. Well, I think it's what would you?
Ideal, but
I would take an unknown period of 20 years if it meant 2 trips to the Super Bowl in like a 4-year stretch, and then hey, the next 20 years could be anything. Could be a Lions-like stretch. Cool. I'll take the 2 Super Bowls and take my chances. Steve Weiner via the Score North app. Other than Middleton, I can't think of one defenseman I'd bring back to the Wild. The Wild need defensemen that play like Greenway, Eck, and Foligno, guys that treat opponents in front of the crease equal to how Eriksson Ek gets treated in there. Make opponents' forwards fight as hard as Eriksson Ek does. The Wild's defense should look and act more like Mike Tyson than Fred Astaire. The back line is the most glaring weakness of this team. They can't get the puck out of their zone. They don't do enough to protect their goalie.
Absolutely all true. Now am I going to move on from all of them? Probably not. But you know what they don't have? And Middleton, when he was added in the season, was a really nice pickup. In the playoffs, he was okay. But what they need is, and look, how many times do we see the Wild play teams like this in the playoffs when they always have this guy, Colton Parayko? It's not a great player, but you know what he does? He kicks the crap out of the opponent, and he's a very functional player, and he's a big, mean guy. And I know exactly, like, that point is a great point. Look at the goal number 2 in the Blues Wild game in Game 5 at the X. Brandon Saad in front. In that case, Brodin and Spurgeon are standing in front. Spurgeon fails to sufficiently tie Saad up, and Brodin just gets beat. So yeah. Again, would I clear the entire blue line out? No. Do I have a frustration about the fact that they don't have that big defenseman who can log tons of playing time and not fighting wise, but physically beat up on opponents? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It's incredibly frustrating.
Braden Shen, dude, and he's a forward for the Blues, but Braden Shen, he has that Pat Bev to him. Like he has that Patrick Beverley edge to him that people hate him, and he's got some talent too. The Wild fans have crapped on guys like Shen. They've crapped on guys like Ryan Reeves, who played for Vegas and has been a thorn in the side of them before too. Like, those guys are goons, and some of them do cheap stuff. But at the end of the day, when they're on your team and those Pat Beverleys, those AJ Pierzynskis are with you, you love them. But you hate playing against them, in the Wild do lack that edge player that can piss people off. They don't have it.
Yeah. Real quick, so unfortunately you won't be able to do pick'em games for our favorite Wild players anymore. But if you still have the itch to get a sweat on games, Underdog Fantasy We have discovered this in the past month and a half or so in Underdog Fantasy, the app, and UnderdogFantasy.com, the best and easiest way to play fantasy sports and get a sweat on games. So you got all sorts of basketball and hockey playoff games still, even without the Minnesota teams involved. And you can, with these pick'em games, you can pick over or unders on some of your favorite or least favorite player stats and win up to 20 times your money in a single night. Underdog keeps it very simple with their easy-to-use website, mobile apps, interfaces. It's so easy that Judd can use them.
Believe
Judd's
me, I
in there
do.
splashing around.
A lot of sweat.
So promo code SCORE, SKOR, will get you double your first deposit, up to $100 in bonus cash. Promo code SCORE if you want to get a sweat on and have a good time on the Underdog Fantasy app.
The sports sweats.
The sports sweats, that's right.
Not the meat sweats. The sports
Not the meat sweat. I'll take them both, actually.
I'll
I might get
take a
some
meat sweat, though. I love
You
a
guys
meat
are,
sweat.
I hate the meat sweats. Ugh.
Bryce Dockin via the Score North app says, the one sport I'm not a diehard fan of in Minnesota is hockey. Oh, wait, I'm not a diehard fan. Minnesota fan is hockey. Okay. Montreal has always been my team, but I've noticed some things while watching the Wild compared to the Canadians and the rest of the league. If the Wild ever want to be real cup contenders, they need one of the top 5 goalies in the league. It's the same pattern over and over. You either have the most ridiculous roster or a very good roster and a top goalie. And I think it's fair to say the Wild had a really good roster. It wasn't like an Avalanche roster. But do you guys, I mean, is that a realistic assessment that, hey, unless you get a top 5 goalie, you're probably screwed or what?
I don't agree with that. I think you definitely need different roster construction, which we saw in the last 6 games. And I don't know what Dex thinks, but I think that you need a good goaltender, a guy that can steal you games. But does that guy need to be considered a top 5? I don't think so. It needs to be a good, solid goaltender. Declan?
Yeah, I mean, look, goaltending can make up for a lot of things. And I know what he's saying there. Like Carey Price at his peak. I mean, look, Montreal actually went to a Stanley Cup last year, which was pretty hilarious. But goaltending can make up for that to a degree. But also, you've seen guys like Jordan Binnington step into that Blues team and help them get to a Stanley Cup. So there's a little bit of luck and factor there. But yes, you want to have those two married and have those two things working at the right times. And it just, one of those always seems to collapse for the Wild when it comes to playoff time.
Yeah. Let's see here. Derlicker1 via the Score North app says, I feel bad for Kaprizov and don't feel great about Dino's hard-nosed love of the lines moving forward. Dumba scored on a made-up line in Game 6. Sometimes you mix up a line for the burst of energy, not as a permanent move. Dean refused until he was extremely desperate, down by 4 and facing elimination. I'm not mad, just disappointed.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You juggle lines to spark players. And that's why lines are often mixed up. And I respected the fact that Dean was old school in the fact that his desire was to keep lines together. The continuity can be a very valuable thing. And like the Ek line obviously worked well together. But every adjustment that Dean eventually made in the series reeked of desperation, not of strategy. That's my problem with it. You cannot look at Kevin Fiala through like the first 2 games and be like, oh yeah, we're keeping that. You got to say, no, I got to get him going and at least give myself a chance. Now, if he continues to struggle, that's too bad, but at least you're doing something. Like hockey players sometimes need to have their attention grabbed by their coaches. It can't be all the time because then it starts to fall on deaf ears. But if you do it right, guys are like, oh, and that's what happened with the Blues. That's what happened with the Blues. They made subtle line adjustments that were huge. Tarasenko, guess what? You got to get his attention. They did. He got a hat trick. So that note is spot on. And that's, again, my problem with Dean is he didn't do anything that gave his team a chance. He just sort of sat back and observed it, which in the playoffs is a massive mistake.
Yeah. Final thing here. I threw this tweet out. This is probably perfect for Feedback Friday. I can't read all of these because there's some, we try to keep it kid-friendly here on the show in terms of language. But I tweeted out last night, describe being a Minnesota sports fan in 3 words or less.
That's obvious.
I'm so tired
Great Beatles song.
Always utter disappointment, expect the worst, uncontrolled self-pity, drinking by noon, hey, I like that one. It's good. Never good enough, oh my God, a bleeping disaster, unrelenting, excruciating suffering, unbelievably, shockingly upsetting, heartache, disappointing, depressing, flyover country, God hates me, and there's literally like 1,000 more of these, but
God hates me.
Some of those are very good. They're very accurate. They're very on point.
yeah. Yep. So, all right, well, shake it off, everyone. I think this means Action Movie Rewind might make a return very quickly on Mackie and Jeb. We were kind of hoping that, maybe through the month of May we can get a playoff run or something, but it's
gonna
too,
have
too
to.
much to ask
It's
for.
gonna-
I do have a wedding tomorrow. I do have it's my only wedding I have all year. Shockingly, I'm at that age, where like you have just like boatloads of wedding during wedding seasons, and I think maybe like the COVID times kind of caught up to people and whatnot. But I only had this. The only wedding I have is Saturday, is tomorrow. So selfishly, I'm glad, and it's in the boonies in Wisconsin. It's like on a farm far away. I don't even know if I'll have cell phone service or what. So
Scary.
at least I don't have to worry about like trying to find Game 7 or doing wild vent line with Judd from a Boone
From
farm.
a barn
AJ
in
was going to help
barn.
me.
AJ was going to help you. Who you forgot. By the way, Phil, Judd forgot who AJ was like 3 days
I
ago.
forgot
on
his
Vent Line.
name. I knew who he was. I could see his face, but I couldn't remember. It was late at night. I was doing Judd's hockey show, and I forgot his name. That's totally true. I did.
It's amazing.
So selfishly, I'm glad I don't have
I apologize,
to deal with that.
AJ.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
AJ's
But actually,
awesome.
Ron,
That was going to be a big
Great job.
spot for
Great
AJ.
job.
Well, maybe we can just do like a mock, like if there was a Game 7, let's do a vent line with AJ and Judd, just bitching about things that probably would have happened in Game 7.
4 Game 6s in the NHL playoffs on Thursday night. 3 will be going to Game 7.
Yeah, and 1 had a great learning experience that they can carry forward into the next season with all the young players and all the draft picks.
Phil?
Back to you. But real quick, on-air production meeting for Action Movie Rewind. So it's been over 2 years since we first launched it was with Mackie and Jeb with Rami. It was with Rami and Jonathan, and we did a bunch of movies before Declan even became part of the show in the summer of 2020. And there's so many people that we didn't even have a Score North YouTube channel at that point. So I propose that we essentially wipe the slate clean on Action Movie Rewind. And there's so many new listeners to the show over the last couple of years. And we just start from the top. Let's create a list of whether we've done the movies or not. Let's do some of the classics to start off with. And we can put our heads together and come up with a list. But let's
Are you saying I have to watch Point Break again?
That's
I've never
exactly what
seen
I'm
it.
saying. Yes.
I've never seen it. So I personally,
Yes.
on-air production
Rocky
meeting in the
IV,
meeting,
Point Break.
think-
Johnny Utah? Ohio
I
State
think Point Break
quarterback?
I think Point Break should be the first one.
We never go in the
haven't seen it.
safe.
It's a great movie. It's a great movie. And then
never go in the safe.
the other problem with the initial iteration of Action Movie Rewind is we didn't really have like a point system. We did for rom-com and we did for
So you're
sports
saying
movie.
throw all the old scoring out.
Well, we didn't really have scoring on.
No, but I'm saying like we did a bunch of scoring then subsequently. Just wipe the slate totally clean here.
Yes, we're basically gonna start Action Movie Rewind over again because
That's
it's been 2
If
years
that's what
since we
people
started
want,
it.
If that's what the people want, I want to do what people want.
Because we've done like 60 action movies, and there's still probably 20 that are great that we haven't done yet. But let's go back, man. Let's do it. Let's do Rocky IV. Let's do Point Break. Let's do Rambo. Let's get it on.
We will avoid some of the ones that we did and
Yes, we will.
subsequently
Yeah.
thought we shouldn't have done them.
I am gonna probably make you guys watch Bloodsport again because I want Declan's take. And Bloodsport's an all-time classic, but I know Rami hated it at one point. I can't remember what Judd thought.
No, didn't we do Bloodsport?
No, we did Kickboxer.
I did
think
Bloodsport with you guys.
I
We
thought
did
Bloodsport
Kickboxer.
I thought Bloodsport
Pretty
was
much
the
the
first
same
one
movie.
that we ever did.
It was, yes, it was. Pretty sure that's true. So we'll make a
Jean-Claude
list.
Is unbelievable. How he didn't win an Oscar for Bloodsport
I don't know.
is still
It's
beyond me.
One of the great snubs in cinematic history, for sure.
Little Speed?
Definitely Speed will be on
Gotta
the
do
list.
Speed.
Yep.
Gotta do Speed.
All right, we will.
Quiz hot shot.
We'll organize. We'll bring back Action Movie Rewind. We just want these Minnesota sports teams to make deep playoff runs and give us championships. But in the absence of that, we're going to start doing movie reviews again.
You're so screwed.
All right, Mackie and Judd. We'll see you guys over on Purple Daily.